sure.
Thank you.
But when you actually come to put something down on paper, you're not getting it done, so we need a little help. Just to get the easy ones. If we get the easy ones, then we can go try to get the one that goes to trail.
I'm not the only one that reads these.
Connect up those two.
All right, are we ready?
Two
Michael?
grids.
Okay.
So he's recording.
I will call the August Parks and Rec Board meeting to order. Marilyn, call the roll, please.
Bob Karstens,
Here.
Russell Clark is excused, Peter Doran,
Here.
Don Galbraith is excused, Al Larson is excused, Kevin McElroy,
Here.
Dave Taylor,
Here.
Chris Maxbauer.
Here. At this particular time, I would like to make a change in the agenda, and I would like, under new business number 3, to be RFQ, please.
RFQ.
Yes, request for qualifications, Easling Pool.
I'm sorry.
Are there any other changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none. Moving on to public comment. This is our first opportunity for public comment.
Do we pledge or no?
No.
Okay.
This is our first opportunity for public comment, seeing no public present. Commissioners? All right, no public comment. Next on the agenda, special order of business, and there is none. Next, somehow I think this meeting is going to go extremely quickly, at least, well, usually that's the kiss of death when I say that at a county board meeting, but we'll see. Okay. Next on the agenda is our consent calendar. Marilyn,
You want me to read this?
please, the purpose of the consent
The
calendar?
purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will automatically be respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted receive and file or approval is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file number 1 is the Lutra report, 2 is the pool membership report, 3 scholarship committee report, 4 rules committee report, 5 is the budget report and a budget spreadsheet, 6 T-Bays report, and 7 a communication from Mr. Defoe, and we have a communication from Beth Friend to add.
Well, actually, Marilyn, just for clarification, the communication is from Richard Round. It was forwarded to me by Beth Friend, and I just
Okay,
wanted to
I'm
make
sorry.
that clarification.
Looked at it too quickly.
All right. And under approvals, we have the Parks Board regular minutes of July 15th.
I have one minor correction on the minutes. Item number 9, vice chair position. The motion is correct, but the information inside the box is incorrect. I have a corrected sheet here. It was one of those copy and paste errors to save time, and I have made the correction on this page.
All right, noting that change in the minutes, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
On the minutes there, I don't think we have to change them, but I mean, technically, Chris, you are the president, and I am the vice president as opposed to chairman and vice chairman. That's the way the statute reads. So I just point that out for the future minutes. And I will make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Is there support?
I did.
All right, we have a motion and support. Marilyn, roll call, please.
Bob Karstens,
Yes.
Peter Doran,
Yes?
Kevin McElroy,
Yes.
Dave Taylor,
Yes.
Chris Maxbauer.
Yes. All right, we have no items removed from the consent calendar. Next is old business, board governance policy. I did not present any additional board governance policies this evening, primarily because so many commissioners were not going to be in attendance this evening, plus we are anticipating 2 additional commissioners. But Commissioner Karstens, you corresponded with me about your general perspective regarding the policies and what we ought to address first. This would be a wonderful opportunity for you to share that with the board.
Well, without the rest of the people being here, shouldn't I wait? And
Would you like to wait until
Well,
next month?
kind of,
And that's fine.
I could write it down and you could, and then it could be in the part of the, so they could see it before
All
the
right.
next meeting?
Okay,
And then everybody could see it and
All right.
react or not. or-
that'll be fine.
Do you-
Moving on to new business.
Maybe
Jason?
just- I'm interested, I thought maybe just a summary,
Well, it's just on, okay, just a minute. Where did I put it? It's here. Yeah. In reading the book, Carver's book,
Yeah.
on page 52, it said something about, anyway, he was talking, I think, about the order in which things should be done. Mm-hmm. And so, and it was on page 52, I think, that he's pretty emphatic about ends being the first item that should be done before anything else. And then my reference to page 267 through 275 is he talks about that kind of again. And so,
Commissioner, are you recommending, based upon your reading, that we tackle the ends policy first before we continue with other types of policies?
yeah, I was thinking that obviously executive limitations is part of governance, but he kind of recommends that we should have our ends before we address that. And I don't think it's probably not frivolous. And so that was kind of a concern of mine from the beginning.
Okay.
And so, but just in terms of, you asked us to read this, and that's what I
I
gleaned.
did, and I
that's what
thank you very
gleaned from
much.
this. And so I just wanted to point that out,
And
give you the places where it's mentioned.
just to share, Commissioner Larson called me and thanked me very much for recommending this book. And I know Commissioner McCallier is applying it to the Board of Public Works, and I think that's going to be a real worthwhile effort, especially when you stop and consider budget policies. So I think there is some good coming
I think
from
there's a
this.
lot of good stuff in here. I agree with you.
And what I'm certainly happy to do, as well as asking other commissioners to do, is bring their ideas next month for ends policies. And ends policies are results, recipients, and cost. So what results do we want? For whom do we want those results? And at what cost? And I would certainly be happy to give you some examples, and I'll send this out well in advance of September's meeting. I'll give you examples of ends policies, and I look forward to the discussion next month.
Did the discs that were ordered, did they come in?
I don't know. Jason, did the DVD come in?
We got those late last week. We just got one copy. It came in Thursday of last week. We finally received it.
Are we allowed to
Yeah.
copy
Yeah.
that?
I haven't had an opportunity.
That I don't know.
I haven't had an opportunity to review it yet to see the formatting as to whether or not we can burn copies of it.
Because frequently you can't, right? A lot of things is
A
copyrighted.
lot of things you can't, but, yeah.
Just as an idea, we've been in touch with Tim Nelson's office. He's been on and off vacation for the past month or so. So maybe it would be beneficial, and I'm just throwing this out there as an idea, that we do have a special meeting related to Carver, where we could maybe view the DVD, talk to Tim Nelson, maybe put something together like that.
Because he's used it,
Just
is
an idea.
basically what you're saying. Basically, he's used it for his.
Correct, at NNC.
How long is a DVD?
I haven't.
It's
as I
at
said, I
least
haven't
an
checked
hour,
through
and
it.
I would
It's
recommend
pretty
that
length- it may be pretty
we individually, at our own convenience,
That's
take a look-
why I
take a
was
look at
asking if you could
Yeah.
make copies, because the sooner we do that, because like you said, it's difficult to read, and it has all these permutations.
It's extremely difficult to read.
Right, and so that it might refine it down into more palatable portions, and so that would be useful. The sooner we could, if we have to serially, does that imply in an order? Or if we have to wait for each of us to hand the disc on, it'll be a lot more, it'll take a lot longer than
Yeah.
if we could all avail ourselves of the disc before the next meeting.
On Monday, I'll check to see whether or not we can make a copy of it, and I'll let the commission know.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely.
All right. Next, new business, NMC parking lease.
We've been working with NMC in regards to the parking in the southern portion of the paved lot at the Civic Center. This is something we've discussed in the past, but we were never able to formalize an agreement to the degree that the NMC proposed to us recently. In their initial parking agreement that is included in your packet, it worked out to approximately $8.89 per spot per month. We had a target of being closer to $10 per spot per month. At the time the packets went out, that was the most up-to-date information. I've had Bob Cooney review the parking agreement as it's been presented, and he's comfortable with it. I was somewhat uncomfortable with some of the details regarding the revenue that would bring in, the cost per space, as well as the time associated with when the cars would be parked and when the cars would be leaving the lot. We have a new agreement that does bring us up to $10 per spot or per space per month over the course of 30 weeks through the school year, beginning August 30th and continuing through December 10th. For the fall semester, spring semester would be January 14th through
May 6th?
May 6th. So the only concern that I have with the current lease, the one that's on your desks right now, is that the 5 p.m. each day, I would make a recommendation to the commission that they approve this lease with one change, and that change being the last line of paragraph number 1, where it says, between Monday and Thursday, beginning at 6 a.m. each day and continuing through 3:30 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. I've talked to NMC, they're agreeable to that. They sent this lease to us yesterday, and I wasn't able to have it turned over to the 3:30. This would, at 3:30 instead of 5 o'clock, would provide ample time for the primary users of the Civic Center to begin, or for the NMC staff and faculty to begin the transition out of the parking lot in order to not displace evening Civic Center users.
What are the new payment amounts?
The new payment amounts are $6,250 per 15-week.
520.
I'm sorry?
You said 250, it's 520.
Oh, I'm sorry, transposo, $6,520 per 15-week period.
Jason, since you have a new lease in front of you, does this specify that it's for staff, NMC staff only, not for students?
I believe it does. Let me... I don't see it specifically there. That's been the discussion that we've had with NMC.
Okay.
The lease does specify 163 spots, and those 163 spots are specifically those areas south of Civic Center Drive. So if you come in Civic Center Drive off of Garfield, it's the parking lot as you're driving in. It's on the right-hand side of the drive.
All right.
Will those cars have any kind of a sticker?
They won't.
Well, are they staff, or are they staff and students?
They, in the past, when they've utilized our parking, it's been staff.
Is that important to us, whether it's staff or staff and students?
I don't foresee there being an issue whether it's staff or students, as long as they're not overflowing into the northernmost lot.
And how is that going to be monitored?
That'll be monitored by me. You know, they may have one car in the north lot, and I'm not going to be too concerned with that. But if they start encroaching into the northern lot, then I'll speak with them directly. And then at that point, they'd be violating the lease. So it's something that'd be easy for us to monitor every day, simply because we're there every day.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner McElroy?
couple of points here. Number one, I want to back up, pursuant to Commissioner Carson's statement about ends policies. When I look at this, I'm thinking, yeah, we don't have ends policy, and does this contract emphasize the production of our ends? So maybe one of our ends policy would be, providing recreational needs for our citizens. So I like the benefit, I support the benefit of staff or students parking here, maybe you recreating at the Civic Center. After, 3:30, you're changing the contract. That's a good benefit. Also, maybe one of our ends policy is that there should be no conflict to users. So I like that you changed the time to 3:30. The contract references a drawing to be made part of the attachment. I'm not seeing that drawing. So I know verbally you're stating what the lot looks like. Is this going to take over an inordinate portion of that lot and causing conflicts for other users? 163 spaces?
163 spaces between 6:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. each day, Monday through Thursday. That's not an inordinate amount of space. That's typically a pretty wide open lot during those times. In the fall, during the school year, essentially, our parking lot begins to fill up after 3:30 when we have folks coming in to utilize the ice arena, to utilize the swimming pool. The use during the day, we have plenty of parking in the northernmost lot.
So it's your recommendation this isn't likely to cause any conflicts?
No, it's
And then, on that note, I see that there's no out clause out of the contract, other than defaults relative to payments or insurance. There's no way to end the contract if there should be a conflict. Had that been discussed with council? Are you comfortable with that?
this has a it doesn't have an out clause, you're right. I'm comfortable because it is a defined date when this lease is up. This is not a long-term lease. In the discussions we've had in the past by not having termination clause were for our long-term leases of over 5 years.
Okay, Commissioner Doran, I'm sorry.
So are you saying, Jason, that the agreement is the same as this, except the numbers, the total amount of payments to the county have changed to be a total of $6,520 per 15-week period, and that the end time of the parking has changed? But are you saying, other than that, there are no changes?
There are no changes to what was handed to you, what was on your desk when you walked in, and the packet that was sent out. And in my narrative regarding this issue, I stayed in there that a new lease would be provided at this meeting.
Well, okay, what was handed me tonight, is that the same thing that was in my packet that came out?
No, it's not. In the
Okay,
two-
well,
the two
I
different-
got a problem with this. I mean, you're asking us to review a contract or anything, where we get hit with it that night. Unless you can explain all of the changes that are from the one that I've read in my packet and detail those, I'm not going to vote for it.
Fair enough. The one change in the contract that I'm presenting to you this evening and the contract that you have is the compensation of $6,520. The original contract that's in your packet has a total of $5,434. That's the one change.
And
And I'm suggesting above and beyond what's presented here.
Okay.
Changing that end time of 5 PM on each permitted day to 3:30 PM on each permitted day.
Okay. And why, good, then why weren't we given the diagram that was attached, supposed to be attached to this?
I omitted it. It was an accident on my behalf.
Let me ask you another question. Are the parking spaces involved here, for the times involved here, surplus to the county's needs and the needs of the users of the Civic Center?
During these times, yes.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner McElligott.
historical point. Jason, could you recall, this is the third time we've addressed this, so do you recall the direction the commission gave you the last two times this was brought to the commission and steering in the right direction? There was a lot of discussion regarding costs.
Yeah, the first time this was brought to us, this became, I believe it was the first time it was a non-issue because the school determined they didn't need to utilize our facility. The second time it was brought to the commission, they utilized our parking for approximately a month and a half, and we did receive $10 per space per month at that time. The direction I received from this commission was to put together a parking agreement that had been approved by Bob Cooney, and that's what I'm presenting to you this evening. And we discussed, it was somewhat of an open-ended discussion, if I recall, and defined, or it was somewhat of an open-ended discussion regarding the amount we received per space, although $10 is reasonable based on the amount received for parking downtown and some of the other parking that I could find numbers with.
Thanks, Jason. That was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. And so I've still not gotten an answer to that question. What is it costing us to maintain? We're responsible for snow removal, striping, sealing, signage, sweeping, when we last directed you on that, I was hoping to get a better handle on those costs and actually charge those costs. So apparently that still has not been done, and the agreement that we have before us wants to start on August 30th. I want to work with NMC here, but now this has become an urgent situation, and we still don't know if we're covering our maintenance costs.
I can tell you we are covering our
Okay.
maintenance costs, because I do have a pretty firm grasp on that, but it's related to snow removal. For snow removal in that lot, we have a 40% break, or we have a 40% of that is paid by ICE, 40% of that is paid by the Civic Center, and 20% of that is paid by Easling Pool, coming out of those different budgets through the facilities management budget. It does not come out of Parks and Recreation budget. And that fluctuates depending on the snow. Our facilities management department has a contract for snow removal with Pop Excavating, so when it does snow, they come in and remove it. Depending on the amount of snow per year, depends on the amount spent on that contract. So that's kind of that number fluctuates to some degree from year to year.
Commissioner Karstens.
If you weren't renting this out, that snow would still have to be removed, wouldn't it?
Correct.
So I don't see the fact that they're parking that adds to our expense. It would have to snow, and the care of that area would have to be done anyway. So to try to squeeze more money out of them, I just don't see the point, really.
This is a reasonable amount. It more than covers our costs associated with that lot.
That's all I needed to hear. Yeah.
Jason, what is our annual cost for snow removal?
That, as I mentioned, that fluctuates every year depending on how much snow we receive. I'm looking at I've got some old information here, and it's my chicken scratch, I'll be honest. It looks like on average, I think I averaged over the past 3 years, it looks like we've averaged about $5,000 per year for snow removal cost to that lot.
Okay. Commissioner, who would like to go first? Commissioner Taylor?
We're going to plow that parking lot regardless of these people parking there or not.
Right.
So I just can't see any additional costs
I agree.
or or striping or whatever we do to that parking, the sweeping, there's nothing that's going to cost more, whether this is used or if it's empty.
Correct.
Commissioner Doran?
There aren't any taxes on this property, are there? There's a
there aren't.
provision in this agreement that talks about the county paying taxes, but there aren't really any taxes being imposed.
No, there aren't.
Okay, well, I will make a motion, and the motion is this, that based upon the representation that the parking spaces involved are surplus to the counties and the civic centers users' needs, that we approve the parking agreement between Northwestern Michigan College and the Grand Traverse County Parks Recreation Commission, conditioned on the removal of paragraph 5 regarding taxes.
And with the change noted that it ends at 3:30 each day in paragraph 1.
Yes, as recommended by the
Absolutely.
director.
And I'll
I'm in
support.
support.
All right, discussion. All right. I will not be supporting the motion for reasons I've stated in the past. There is no termination clause in the contract. I think there should be. It is my opinion, based upon what it costs annually to park in downtown parking lots, based upon what it costs to park at the Hardy Deck, that this is not a fair price. It is certainly a reduced price, but it is not, in my opinion, a fair price. And I don't see that a parking lease, leasing a parking lot is in keeping with our mission, our vision, or discussions that we've had in our strategic planning. And for that reason, those reasons, I will not be supporting the motion. Any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Aye. All right, motion passes. Next on our agenda are performance measures. As I mentioned, well, I may not have mentioned it publicly, but I will. Commissioner Larson is on an airplane at the moment, and so he called me and told me that he would not be landing the plane probably in time to present his performance measures this evening himself. He asked me what my recommendation was, and I asked him to please drop his performance metrics off to Jason, and asked Jason to copy the commission, which I see his office has done. This will give us, from now until September, to take a look at Al's suggested performance measures. Perhaps commissioners have ideas of their own on what performance measures they might like to see. And Al is planning to present his recommendation at our September meeting. Is that acceptable with everyone?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, moving on. Number 3, RFQ for Easling Pool. Jason, what is the status of that?
Kim and I have been exploring some of the different organizations that may be able to provide some draft RFQs or provide some insight as the best way to go through this process. We have been in touch with Dave Rowland. Some of the organizations we're contacting right now are USA Swimming, National Recreation and Park Association. We've received some references from the town of West Hartford, which is a city that Lutra works with. They've also provided some suggestions, and Kim's checking with U.S. Synchro, U.S.
Water polo diving.
Water polo, U.S. diving, a
Some
variety of
places in
different
Florida.
aquatics, as well as some cities and municipalities in Florida, to see if we can find something that's been utilized in the past, and to get some goods and some bads, find out what we can utilize moving forward with the RFQ. So we're very early in the process. I have a meeting with Dennis Saloy. I wanted to bring this up with him, so he was on board with this. He helped us with the RFQ when we found Lutra, and I wanted to discuss this a little bit further with him on Monday.
Okay.
So we're trying to find some research, find out what's out there, what other RFQs have
When do you
gone around.
anticipate that you will have something for the commission to approve or not approve, as far as an RFQ?
I would, this is something that I'd like to see on, as a discussion in our September meeting, and I would hope to have something for the October meeting.
Okay, and just to let you know, the city of Redmond, Washington has been started, I think, about a year or so ago, it may have been longer than that, with budgeting for outcomes. And one of the things that they are doing with their facility is doing an RFP. I do have a copy of their RFP, which I would be more than happy to email you if
I
you
would,
want to
yeah,
take
I'd
a look
appreciate
at
that. That'd be
Did
great.
you say Redmond or Redland, Washington?
Redmond,
Okay.
okay? Next, director's report.
It's been kind of an unusual month. I was on vacation for a couple weeks. So I'm somewhat limited in what I've provided. I was dealing with budget, and our next budget hearings will be September 9th and 10th in front of, is that the entire board, Chris, or is it
It's
Ways
the
and Means?
entire board. September, just so the public is aware, September 8th is when the county board is going to meet and set the price of government. And I say, when I say set the price of government, budgeting for outcomes consists of 5 different areas. Number 1 is determining whether the problem is long-term, short-term, revenue, expense, or both. So the county board really has to come to a decision whether or not they feel that this, in our revenues, I will tell you, are down significantly. The county board needs to decide whether or not they feel that this is a temporary situation, whether this is a long-term situation, whether our revenues are going to stay flat, whether our revenues are going to grow. The county board absolutely has to come to some kind of determination as far as revenues and expenses. Now, I will tell you, historically, since 2001, expenses have gone up 4.66% annually. When you see that employees maybe have gotten a 1.5% raise or a 1.75% raise, you have to take into consideration that benefits are rising at 5 to 9% a year. So historically, our expenses are going up 4.66%. I just did it to 2001. We just received an audit report, and in the audit report, it states that expenses are going up about 4.5% annually. But, you know, my numbers are not that different than the auditor's numbers. So on September 8th, the county board is going to sit down, and we are going to set the price of government. How much money do we believe that we are going to have to spend? We're going to probably make our best guess. We certainly are not going to know until the CPI numbers come in. Those numbers don't come in historically until October. But, and as the public, I'm sure, is aware, last year's budget, our revenue projection was $750,000 off. Our revenues came in $750,000 lower than anticipated. So that's September 8th. September 9th, we are going to hear from department heads. And we are already hearing from department heads. I have in front of me Sheriff Bensley's memo, which was in my mailbox today, on what impact this has on his department. I did look at some of the, and just so the public is aware, the county administrator's budget proposal is eliminating 39 positions. An assistant prosecuting attorney, clerk in the county clerk's office, deputy sheriffs, it's maintenance workers in facilities. So on September 9th, we are going to hear from department heads as to why they should not be as severely impacted, perhaps, as other departments are. We're going to hear arguments. September 10th, we are going to sit down and really get to work. We are scheduled September 10th from noon until 5 p.m., so we anticipate it's going to be at least 5 hours. We have 3 additional tentative dates scheduled at the end of September, because I don't anticipate that we're going to be done September 10th. I really believe this is going to be an extremely difficult budget discussion. We'll see. So that's where we are. Are there any questions or any information that I can answer? Questions I can,
Regarding budget?
Hmm?
Regarding budget?
yeah.
Yeah.
And Jason, you have nothing else with your budget?
I just
Or with your report?
want to let the commission know that we've been receiving surveys, electronic surveys, from both coaches of our baseball program as well as parents of our baseball program. At first glance, they're coming in with pretty high marks. We used the Likert scale for both coaches and parents, and coaches got a different set of questions, obviously, than parents did. Once we receive more of those evaluations, I'll present the information to the commission at our next commission meeting. And I'd like to remind the commissioners, our next commission meeting is the 23rd. We moved that last month. So I'll have some information in regards to the baseball evaluations. And that's all I have for my director's report.
Madam Chair, I was hoping for a couple of items in the director's report. Would it be appropriate to ask the
Certainly.
director of them? There were 4 items. One we discussed, the RFQ status. You've already addressed that. Some old issues I don't want to lose track of. Is there an update on the master plan status? Remember, that was kind of, you had an intern on board that was helping with that. And then maybe somehow if we could track these issues in our packet. As I say, I've got 3 issues. The master plan, the strategic plan that we worked hard on, all of a sudden appeared to disappear.
It didn't disappear. Go ahead, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yeah. And so I just somehow want to get an update on those items. And I've also got a note to self here that we were going to research fees and update fees. So at the Board of Public Works, we have these same issues and all these items. And so we've developed a system where they're included in the packet in old business so we can be sure that they've got some attention.
Those are items that are high on my priority list,
Good.
but there's only so many things that I can do, I'll be honest.
Sure.
You know, the past month was taken up with, I had some family commitments that I'm not gonna fall back on. And the budget was priority. It was a timely issue. Master plan, strategic plan, those are all things that are high on our priority list. I know that we worked with Paula Segala to see if we could get another strategic planning meeting. Her vacation was the weeks previous to mine. So we are working through these issues, and those are the next 2 of the next items after the RFQ on my list of things to take care of. But those are things, I'm the only person that can take care of those.
Jason, I've got a question on some of the budget numbers that I provided for the Parks Commission. Primarily, my concern is...
I don't have the info, I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Page 41 in your packet. Part-time temporary. 4th line down.
Okay, yep.
Your budget for 2010 was $103,000 at the end of as of up until, I think, July 24th or 25th.
Okay.
You spent, as of the end of July, you spent $82,000 on part-time temporary. 58% into the year, you've spent 80% of your budget. When I was doing the spreadsheet for the Parks Commission, I spoke with Dean Bott, the finance director, and he told me that you moved $13,000 from contract services in Easling Pool up to the part-time temporary line item budget. What did you eliminate that you had planned for that $13,000?
In 2010, we had budgeted to spend $13,000 replacing the black vinyl lines on the bottom of the pool and the lettering on the pool, which is washed out to gray. Our liner is 8 years old now, so that's typical. The only way to make those lines darker is to replace them with vinyl. And at this point, it's not I don't feel as though that project is worthwhile. It's certainly not high on this commission's, it hasn't come out as a high priority on this commission's list. The community of swimmers don't have a lot, or they don't seem to have a lot of concern over it. And it's $13,000 that was in the 2010 budget, that at Dean's suggestion, and I told him, I said, that's a project we're not going to do, and he suggested that we move that up from contract services into the part-time temporaries.
Jason.
One of the things
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've looked at the table that you've presented, because I received this a few days ago, and one of the things that I'd like to bring up to the commission, I've got a table very similar that includes that $13,000 addition to part-time temporary, and right now, we have spent 71% of the part-time temporary line item. Our figures at this point, as of 8/17, should be at 62.7% of our budget expended, and our revenue, as of August 17th, should be 62.7%. Right now, we've realized 71% of our budgeted revenue. So our budget, our revenue are tracking similar to our part-time temporary line items for the pool.
Are you including the $16,000 that actually was 2009 revenue that's reported in 2010 and the $7,500 that you received from the Grand Traverse Band in those revenue numbers?
The Grand Traverse Band money, that Grand Traverse Band money is included. I can't tell you off the top of my head whether the 2009 revenues were. We're going at 71% in our two biggest, the fall is our biggest revenue generating quarter.
I'm just going to express this concern right now, and I expressed it to the finance director. I'll express it to you. At this particular rate of spending, you will not have enough money in your part-time temporary budget for labor. So my question is, what are you doing about it? Where do you anticipate you're going to have to make cuts? Are you talking about the necessity of shortening pool hours, moving budget line items?
We're talking
At this rate, you won't have enough money to cover your expenses in that line item.
We're looking at additional revenues. We're looking for there are some possibilities for line items being moved around within the pool. And those are very real possibilities. These are inflated due to the first quarter of the year, and we did have some additional staff on because we were trying to put together additional programs. And I'll be honest, we blew through a lot of part-time temporary money in the first quarter, and that was brought to our attention in April, and we've since cut back on staff, and we're still feeling some of the effects due to some things that we tried to do early in the year.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Jason? All right. This is the second opportunity for public comment. Anyone? Hearing none. Notices and commissioner comments. Any commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Doran.
Could we make sure that the absent commission members get a copy of Al's performance metric proposal with maybe a note that this is going to be on the September agenda?
And also, Jason, would you email all of the commissioners and let them know that I will be providing some examples of ENDS policies, and if they have any ideas or desires regarding policies, to please bring them to September's meeting?
Yeah, we'll send that in, or Marilyn will send that out as a reminder when she sends out the minutes via email.
All right. Okay, with that, in a record time, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Is there support? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same. We're adjourned. Thank you all.